This interview is being recorded and will be on the Olympia Indivisible website for anyone to view who wishes to. So with that, welcome, Carolyn, and could you take just a short time to introduce yourself and explain your motive for running?
Thank you very much, Dan. Absolutely. I've served now on the city council for almost 8 years, and it feels kind of like a book with unfinished chapters. There's a lot of work that I still want to see through, particularly around our response to climate change, around our response to homelessness, and developing more solutions for housing that people can afford. And I recently told the city manager, I not only want to double down, I want to triple down our diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging efforts. It's just so very, very important during this period. Um, I do hold a number of leadership positions in the community. I'm currently the chair of the Intercity Transit Authority. This is my 6th year of serving on the authority, and was happy to be during my first go around with him, happy to be part of the vote that brought us free bus service and an expanded route system. I'm also the vice chair of the Thurston Regional Planning Council, and I've been involved with that group. This is the third entity I've represented at TRPC on. First it was Lacey, then it was Intercity Transit, and now I'm the lot representative on there. So I've had 8 years now with TRPC, and it's a very important group because it brings together not just the cities and the county, but the school boards and tribes and other entities. See the PUD uh, to play at the table, and reaches out to other regional planning agencies as well. Um, During my time on the council, I think I've pretty well established myself as a housing advocate and an environmental advocate, and that is work I very much want to continue and expand on if I'm so blessed as to win a third term on the city council.
Very good, thank you. So picking up on some of that, you do mention that your top three priorities for your next term include housing, environment, and smart growth. What do you see as the major hurdles that may impede progress on these issues? And in particular, what can city council do about them?
Well, it's all connected. Lacey is running out of buildable lands, and you won't see more warehouses built out in Northeast Lacey because there's just no land for them to go into. Um, and that means we either expand out our city limits by annexing more land into the city, or it's probably more of an and or we redevelop existing developments within the city. And there are a number of sites I think that aren't being used for their best and highest use that could be redeveloped into both residential and commercial, or a combination of both. Um, the denser you go, the harder it is to stay green. We had a briefing not too long ago. It's been 3 or 4 months about these very new planned subdivisions going in, and particularly those that aren't on the sewer system. And with the um, sewer box, it's not sewer boxes, but they're anyway. There's some sort of infrastructure there. Sorry, I'm losing the term. There just isn't room for trees in the median, in the little planting strip in front of the houses. And so, you know, I get that. I mean, you don't want tree roots growing in and tearing up infrastructure. My own neighborhood is experiencing that with the irrigation systems. But how do you compensate for that? If you can't have trees in people's yards, where what kind of green space for that neighborhood can you create? So whether it's a pocket park, whether it's developer sets aside a bigger tract of land someplace else, but it is land that won't be developed into housing. There's got to be ways to do that. So it will be challenging, but I think if we're really smart and creative about it, we'll be able to do that. I hope that got your question answered, Dan.
Yeah, yeah, thank you very much.
Okay.
Actually, you anticipated a couple of my other questions, which I'll get to. One of them was the use of the phrase highest and best use, and what I'd like to know is more specifically how you define that term highest and best use in this context.
Well, it's a planning term. It's one I picked up on my years that I served on the Lacey Planning Commission, and it's it is has to do with the zoning classification for a parcel of property. And let's say the zoning classification is one that calls for mixed businesses or businesses and light industrial kind of thing, and you've got just kind of a dumpy old building there that really isn't generating much revenue, or or maybe is sitting empty. Could that property then be purchased, knocked down, and something that would be a stimulator for that area? Because like tends to attract like. Once you get something attractive into an area, it tends to, the neighboring properties tend to spruce up, or maybe it attracts something in the next block, but it does tend to have a dynamic effect that way.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So that ties together a few things. The there is a many conflicts within any city council and city planning on uh, real and potential conflicts between one or more desirable public policy outcomes. Um, One of them, for example, is maintaining green space and tree canopy versus this development. And um, can you explain in a little more detail what city council's role is in trying to balance those priorities in this particular case? Thinking in terms mostly of the need for smart growth and affordable housing versus also the need for green space and tree canopy in that.
Well, it's a balancing act. If you look at our the work that's going into our 6-year comprehensive plan, and the comp plan is a document that looks out over a 20-year horizon and addresses every aspect of city of the city's functions, from streets to utilities to law enforcement, all of it. And there is a whole new section now on climate change that is going to be part of this plan. And this plan directs the work plans that the city will do from here on for the next 20 years. And much of that work falls with our community and economic development department. Lacey already does have a pretty strict tree policy that says you can't cut more than 3 trees within a 5-year period. on a piece of land. And it also calls for replacement in some, not directly replacing those three trees, but they're, if you have a bigger piece and you're cutting even more, then yeah. So I feel pretty good about our tree policy that way. And it's going to have to be a balancing act. And I think we're going to have to sadly accept that there may be some neighborhoods that are little planned, 200 unit or so neighborhoods that may not have street trees or yard trees, but I will be very insistent that we have green spaces nearby if we can't manage to squeeze trees into a tiny little lot.
Yeah.
Make it work.
Yeah. Okay.
Because the tree canopy is so important in terms of being one of our best defenses in cooling, but also in absorbing carbon, absorbing and storing it.
So you've hit on a couple of things that I was gonna or that I am gonna ask about as well. So I'll start out on one. You just mentioned the Lacey's Community and Economic Development and their success in attracting living wage jobs. Of course, the need to continue with that. What is the role of City Council in this and other efforts to attract businesses and jobs? And I guess more specifically, how do you think City Council should proceed on this?
Well, this the council's role is to direct staff. We can adopt policies, but then direct the city manager and his staff to implement those policies. So uh, you kind of have to be careful when you're creating policy because you don't want to have unintended effects that might be detrimental to another group when you're trying to, let's say we want to really bring in a grocery store to Northeast Lacey. And believe me, we've tried, but we'll keep trying. But, you know, if we did that and if we succeeded in doing that, is that going to harm the business for grocery stores along Marvin Road just south of the freeway? And what does that do competitively? So I, I think the council has already set direction for what is now known as our Midtown district to really work to attract um, businesses that would fit in well with the educational institutions there. We have a number of state agencies that have come in, and so it's an innovation tech kind of zone there, and those tend to be institutions and businesses that will attract that do pay better than your average McDonald's or what have you does. Um, and I think we have a economic coordinator, I think it is, lovely man named Wesley Wynn, and part of his job is to go out and engage with potential businesses to come into the city and to work with the chamber and the Economic Development Council and the Center for Innovation and all of these to try to pull that our way. Another thing that we would love to have is some car dealerships because those generate a fantastic amount of sales tax revenue. That's why Olympia is so much better funded than Lacey is because they have that big auto mall out there. So looking for opportunities as well that are going to help the city meet its burdens and responsibilities. And sales tax is the by far exceeds property tax as a revenue source for the city.
So I'm going to jump to one of my other questions. And since you brought up sales tax and car dealerships, you're not the first person from Lacey that I've heard mention the car dealership issue and the pressure that Lacey has in terms of not getting a lot of sales tax revenue, um, which I guess primarily comes from large retail outlets, and that's how come the car dealership issue comes up. But are there other opportunities that you think Lacey should be pursuing for trying to generate additional sales tax revenue? I'm just uh, wondering, I guess, partly whether or not the focus should be entirely on car dealerships, or are there other options?
Well, it's it's the easiest option in terms of you're selling a high ticket, something that just one vehicle is going to generate a fair amount of sales tax there. And other retail that you could bring in is going to have a whole lot of sales in order to, excuse me, generate what a single car dealership would. And I think that's why you're seeing focus that way. We do have now a Mack truck sales outlet on Marvin Road, and so we'll see how that does. But retail in itself generates some. I mean, there's the just thinking in the Hawks Prairie Business District, you've got Costco, Best Buy, um, Home Depot, a number of those businesses out there, Walmart, but um, I don't think I haven't seen apples to apples, what a Walmart could generate in a year versus what a car dealership could generate in a year. But I
Mhm.
suspect, you know, it's it's competitive.
Yeah. And of course, this kind of comes up against another one of the conflicts between smart growth and things like sales tax. One of the aspects of smart growth that's often talked about is more small family businesses or just small businesses in general, and walkable neighborhoods, being able to get to those small businesses. But those aren't really the ones that generate the sales tax revenue that would be so helpful to the city.
Yeah.
Um, is there, how is that conversation proceeding, or is it?
Well, small business doesn't have to be a mom and pop little shop. It could be a dentist office. It could be, you know, some other professional service that does generate a good bit of income that would be subject to sales tax. So I think recruiting, some professional services would be something that we could potentially do more of.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to switch gears here now for a moment. You have been a champion of the Metropolitan Park District proposal. It was on the ballot a few years ago and failed, and it's going to be on the ballot again in August. Just as a matter of voter education, can you just speak for a moment what that is and why we need it, why you think we need it?
Yes, we put together a committee of Lacey residents to take a look at the unfunded parks needs, like what do we need in order to fully develop the Greg Cuyo Park out in Northeast Lacey, the Lois Lake area, a number of properties that are undeveloped that our residents can't enjoy. They looked at three different funding models and determined that a metropolitan park district would be the best model. And so the city council then, and they came up with a list of priorities for um, new new facilities as well as um, maintenance needs that aren't that are either being deferred or we're just not keeping up with as well as we'd like to. and handed these off to the city council. A metropolitan park district is a what's called a junior taxing agency, and it the revenue it raises is for a very specific purpose. It cannot be diverted into other uses. City council adopted a policy when we agreed to go out for the Metropolitan Park District that the money that the Park District raises would not supplant in our general fund budget the amount that we're already spending on parks. It would be added to that. And so these funds, and we also capped it at 45 cents per 100 per 1,000 dollars of assessed value. The law allows us to go up to 75%, but Lacey's council said no, we're going to cap it at 45% and go from there. There was some talk about whether we would take the district out beyond the city limits to the urban growth area. But that brought with it its own problems. Like if we did that, then we would have to create another layer of government that would be a parks district board that would be an elected body that would administer the budget, develop and administer the budget, and oversee the park district. And that would have to be, two each from the city and the county, and then I guess a coin toss about how that fifth member would be chosen. By keeping it within the city limits, the city council can actually function as the governing body for the Metropolitan Park District. So we are talking, we also insisted that every part of the city get a piece of the pie. So anything from like spray parks to the big Cuyo Park in Northeast Lacey to the Lois Lake Park that I mentioned, the regional athletic complex is on tap. And we're working with the North Thurston School District and the South Sound YWCA to build an early childhood learning center out across Marvin Road from the regional athletic complex. And that may not get the first funding because there has to be more fundraising to go with it, but we have a commitment to use some of that money to help that along. So, just in sum on that, I mean, Lacey's parks are one of the very, very best assets that we have. And to let them, languish, would be a real shame. And the more people we have coming to live here, the more we need those green spaces to bring us relief from the things that go with urban life.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. So we're coming up close to our time limit now. Let me just ask a couple more things.
Okay.
How do you differentiate yourself from your opponent?
I think I lean further to the left than my opponent. I am much more involved in regional boards and commissions than my opponent is. I think he has a strong interest in military and has done some good things. I mean, he led efforts to get the Gold Star Families Memorial out at Civic Plaza, and I think he's working on one for Purple Heart recipients now. I think I bring just a wider range of interests and responsibilities, and I don't mean to sound negative about him, but I show up and I really work to get things done and build external relationships between Lacey and the other governmental jurisdictions.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. So I guess by way of wrapping up then, is there anything more you'd like to say about your campaign? How's it going and how you see the future or just anything to sum things up?
Well, I guess first, since you brought up my opponent, my first instinct when I found out who my opponent would be was to reach out to the city manager's office and to my council colleagues and acknowledge that this was going to be awkward for everybody and to assure them that my intention is to run a positive issues based campaign and that they would not see any drama from me. And so far, my campaign is going well. I've got some money, not as much as I'll need, obviously, but some money in the bank now. I've got endorsements from Congresswoman Marilyn Strickland, uh, Lieutenant Governor Denny Heck, our 22nd legislative delegation, 5 mayors. I mean, it just, I've got a really healthy list of endorsers. And so I feel like I'm on solid ground. And I have never lost an election, and I don't intend to lose this one.
Okay, good attitude. All right. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to talk with us and good luck on your campaign.
Well, thank you so much, Dan. I really appreciate it. This is a great opportunity, and I just really want to commend the work that Only Indivisible does and look forward to hearing from you.
All right. Thank you.